Mr. Jarvis.
Here.
And our newly appointed full-time regular member, Miss Helena Duda.
Here.
Congratulations.
Well,
And Member Jones is absent today. And we do have now a new vacancy as an alternate position. No trivia tonight. We'll get right started with our first application, 2024-24, which is Towpath LLC. Bill, this is a lot line revision, 436 Towpath. We're just combining John's lots 2 into 1.
2 parcels, gonna make it all one.
Great, looks pretty easy to me.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that?
The survey will show the cabin is down.
Okay.
And so the shed used to be there.
The house looks great.
Yep.
Absolutely. Helena, anything to add? Okay, Peter? Zorian? Anne Marie?
No, I'm good.
Zach?
Thank you.
No. Okay, can I have a motion to accept the certification as presented? I have Peter. Second by Zach. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All set. We'll get a map signed. We'll see you soon.
Was that a record?
Maybe. We're gonna keep the pressure on tonight. We have a lot to get through.
Yes,
Okay,
5 minutes.
pretty good. All right. Next is Planning Board 2021-516, a major subdivision for Vijay Realty on Lucas Avenue. Nadine, this is pretty easy. We're just basically extending the approval that we've already extended due to the time frame. I know you're waiting on some permits. Give us the 30-second elevator speech and we'll move on.
Yeah, so I gave a list of the status of all the conditions of what's complete, what's pending, whatever. So since I sent this in 2 weeks ago, we have received the Ulster County Department of Public Works permit. So
Great.
that's item 14. That's taken care of. Today, I just got an update from Scott Benson from the Health Department. We have in your file that basically all their comments have been addressed. One major little item on lot 3 with the pump station, and then all they need is the well. And as you know, so what we're really waiting for at this point is DC approval for the wetlands.
Yep.
crossing. So we
I
need
saw your
that
emails.
if we come in either way, from Lucas Ave or from them, we need that from the DC. So we have received comments. We got them all, our responses over 2 weeks ago. We did have one person that reached out for some clarification. We got that to them. I reached out with an email on Friday asking for an update. I put in a phone call today. I don't have a response.
Great.
So at this point, really, anything that's contingent on that is being held up, but that we have everything from every other agency.
Okay, so your extension request is how many days?
So we are requesting, you can do up to 2, 90-day extensions.
Correct.
I'm asking for both of them right now for a couple reasons.
Okay.
One, if everything comes into play, we'll have this filed and then we can start. I should just back up really quick. Also, one of the items we're waiting for is the town board to accept for setting the bond and all the HOA agreements. They've been going over it. They have a meeting this Thursday. It's been recommended that they go ahead and accept everything. So hopefully they are able to present their meeting. But so once everything has been done and we can start getting the road in to get the well in, we're going into the winter season.
Understood.
So these things might not even still be done in 90 days. So we're asking for both of them so that we have enough time to get it all done. We don't have to come back and bother you again until we're all done.
Makes sense to me. Helena, any issues?
Nope.
Peter?
Just a quick, the properties for sale, is this affected that?
It shouldn't. I know they were talking about, because they had reached out to the attorney about can we sell the property with the approvals and things like that. So it doesn't make a difference either way, as far as I know.
Just proceeding.
We are proceeding with the same owner currently to get this completed.
Understood. Zorian?
so it means it means a new owner will be obligated
To carry those
to
out.
start it right away. Let's say it happened 182nd day. So that owner, when it buys, they have to understand they have to start the project or ask for extension if it's possible.
Correct.
Right, well, right, so once, if the board agrees to, grant both of these 90-day extensions right tonight, that's it. Once those expire, if this isn't done, there is no mechanism really for them to come back and ask for any more extensions.
Right. This would be their only
This
option.
is it.
Okay, Zach?
Nope.
Emery?
I'm good.
Can I have a motion to extend the application 180 days as presented by Nadine?
I'll make a motion.
Zoran? Second?
I second this.
Second by Helena. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? See you in 180 days
Thank
or
you,
less.
and thank you very much for this.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Nadine.
Take care.
Okay, 2024-15, a special use permit for RV Associates Gasland Petroleum by Jared Rizzi. This is the corner of Route 209 and Medicahonks Road. Give you guys a second to get set up. Dave is going to be a little late today.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay, guys, you want to kick it off for us?
Chairman, we're Chris looking with LaBella Associates. With me is Jared Ridley of LaBella Associates, and we also have the applicant with us from Gasland Petroleum.
Absolutely. Nice to meet you.
Mitch Nedgerott, this is the president, and also, is it Don Nedgerott, who is the vice president of Gasland Petroleum?
Great.
Sit here.
Oh, you could join us if you want. Pull a chair up. Okay.
We are, Phil Greeley, with Collier Engineering is intended to be here tonight. We're going to, hopefully he'll come before we conclude. We had a couple of things we wanted to discuss with the board. We were here, in July, and we presented some revised plans based upon some dialogue we had with the DOT and some direction we were given at the board. And we had further engineered some of our plans and accepted that. There was a tremendous amount of feedback that came back at that July meeting. A lot of it was focused on the concerns with the traffic, with a left turn coming directly into our site. There was concerns raised with the intersection of Medicahonks Road and the State Road. There are some site distance issues that were continuing to be raised. There was concerns about the queuing distance as well for taking a left turn onto that, and also the site distance for taking a left turn. And the impacts that the gas station may have, as it's not necessarily improving the level of service which was at that particular location from its current, from what was being proposed. We went further with this application, and well, in addition to that, let me just outline some of the other items that were of concern. There was concern about the amount of disturbance that was being proposed for the overall project, as it was along scenic highway, and if there were opportunities for increasing the site disturbance, decreasing the overall impervious on the site. I know this is in a groundwater protection overlay district. We had provided some information that was previously requested about the tank installation itself, the monitoring that goes into that. I don't think you guys really had the opportunity to dive into that in July and go over some of that protocol that was in place. Hopefully tonight we might be able to have a little bit more of a discussion on that, along with some of the checks and balances that goes into when fuel is transported on site. There was also concerns about the cultural significance on the site and the request that a phase 1 study be conducted. That study was conducted for the record. Unfortunately, we didn't get it back in time for the submission. We do have copies of it tonight. Conclusion was that there should be no further studies, as nothing else significant was identified on the site for which was studied, but we would circulate that in another evening. And I think those were the big ticket items, and obviously architecture, you had some feedback on that, but what we still we wanted to accomplish within the time that we had was we met with the DOT on this project. And we focused on revisiting the overall concept in terms of trying to reduce the disturbance. And also, I forgot, we did meet with the church as well, to get their feedback on the project and hear any concerns that they may have. So we focus this particular submittal. It doesn't address all the concerns, but we figured we'd focus on the traffic, which was a major item. The limits of disturbance and overall impervious area associated with the project. And we also wanted to give you formal responses for the special use permit and the groundwater protection overlay district. We know the other items are outstanding. Architecture, we'd have to revisit again. Obviously, we probably have to revisit special use permit and groundwater overlay district based on the dialogue this evening if it moves in a forward direction. And we know we've got to get the cultural impact study in front of it. So tonight we just want to focus on those.
All right, so Dave, why don't you, Dave did a review of this as you requested.
Paper copy?
Yeah, sure, pass it around. We'll go line by line and we'll go from there. I think the traffic is, the traffic report is something that we're gonna have to address as well.
Yeah.
And this just got emailed to the board members this afternoon. So I was asked to just summarize where things are at on behalf of the town, so I'm gonna focus on documentation and process, and with process, Mr. Gordon will elaborate when he gets here, the planning board attorney. So in documentation, as was explained, we've gotten some additional information since you last met, which was July. So we have the one-page memo from State Parks, State Historic Preservation Office. They called for a phase 1A and B. You're not doing B?
No, and we're going to submit the report to them. There was no findings that indicated whether
Okay.
there was nothing of significance.
All right, so we'll need
yeah.
we'll need the state to say that.
So they're uploading it to the Crest website,
Okay,
their report. So in order to get a formal response back.
okay. For the board, 1A is documentary research on archaeological resources there. 1B is field work. Your representative, your consultant said no field work necessary. So-
Yeah, I mean, they did 61 holes they dug out there as part of the phase 1B.
Oh, okay.
And phase 1A, I'm sorry,
Oh.
they dug 61. And there was what they thought to be an item of concern. And they did 8 additional tests surrounding that. And they determined that no further studies should be conducted.
Okay, good, good. We got traffic impact study, which we can talk about more. And we've got a unusual email exchange with DOT that
Yeah,
you'll have to explain later, because that's not a permit. That's
No,
one
so-
guy saying in one sentence, that finds the concept acceptable.
yeah,
right?
so,
But we'll get to that.
yeah,
There's a 5-page memo from Christopher, responding to questions and concerns from the board from the last meeting, which was helpful. There's another 5-page memo from Christopher, request from the chairman, seeks to address the section 140-55 special use criteria.
Yep.
That must be met. The copy of a set of email exchanges between the applicant and DOT. They provided the narrative, which was requested, and they've revised the maps. So we talked a little bit about the SHPO response. I guess that's forthcoming.
yeah, I brought the reports, but if you wanted to look at them, but I
It's
thought
okay,
it would
we
be
get-
better to give you
Yeah,
Chipo's response as a whole.
Bring it all at
Which-
And
once.
give it all at once, let's complete document.
That would be
I
good.
just brought some copies in case somebody,
Well, it's gonna lead us into a
Yeah.
seeker discussion, which we.
in case anybody has some. free
We have to
time
send that
want
out for
to
lead
read
agency.
reports.
We're not gonna have-
Right. So we're gonna, in a moment, we'll stall a bit for the attorney to arrive, but there's, he and I are proposing with the chairman a certain action on seeker for tonight.
If you want, we can sit back and wait for another applicant until your attorney. arrives.
No, it's he's we're
close.
okay.
We'll keep going. We got a lot to go over on this.
I'm not sure if you're gonna provide more information on the bulk storage, fuel storage. I mean, it was pretty general. I think the board was looking for more specific information.
So what we gave for that was we gave a rundown of the tank operations and maintenance guideline for once.
I think what we were concerned about is that it's in an aquifer protection area and there's a tremendous amount of housing in that significant location. So like Dave said, it was just very generic. So we're looking for some more detail, whether it be our engineer reviews it and make sure that it's kosher, or if there's an additional level of detail, which we haven't done yet. So
Just for clarification purposes, so when you were here, and I believe it was May, and I was talking about the detail of the tanks, the double wall contained tanks, the interspatial, spatial, depth between them, the monitoring that takes place. Do you want more information on that, like containment solutions, who's a provider of these tanks, so that you have that, and maybe like a detail of the typical tanks that show all this level of detail?
I mean, we did the same tank at the Valero down the road.
Yeah.
And we did the same tank at I think it might be a Citgo on the top of the hill.
Yeah.
Within the last 5 years.
So it probably came from containment solutions, there's customers.
So we're familiar with the tank per se.
Okay.
What we're concerned about is how it could be adversely affected in the aquifer protection overlay, because those two locations are not in there.
So, yeah, and that's part of what we've provided in terms of our overview. We've given you an overview of the annual and triannual testing that takes place for the tank and the piping itself. We've outlined that. We've given you an overlay of the monthly facility inspections and maintenance that takes place in the document we submitted. We've also given you an idea of the on-site record keeping that has to take place. And if you recall, one of the discussions we had was, how do you monitor the volume of the tank? And we talked about there's different ways that they monitor it. It's electronically monitored by a level within the tank. It's also measured by logs of what they sell on a daily basis, and they're required to keep that log, and we counsel it every 10 years. We put that in the on-site record. Yeah, every 10 days.
So maybe you send all that information to us, we can get it over to our engineer, and then they can sort of check that box to move on from that corridor.
So was there, I mean, we submitted
Well, I
a
think
2-page document.
I think initially we're gonna have to, in the context of the aquifer, and in the context of seeker, which is the process we're looking to initiate tonight, we're gonna have to get some background that fits into that box about groundwater impact.
Okay,
Okay, and written in that context for
okay.
for
So,
document, so you could do that, or we could do it,
No, I think that they should submit it to us and we can get it over to.
okay?
so we can,
But we're gonna put, you gotta, as Mr. Gordon will explain in a little while, you've got a little bit of time, because we gotta do a process thing with seeker first,
no,
right?
fully understood.
It's gonna take, call it a month,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, so I think I understand. So what I'll do is I'll provide the detail
It's
and
an impact
specification
assessment,
and focus on how that particular detail and material build, along with the operations that we gave you, is going to limit the impact around that, which is what they for in there. It's around that's just right. It's kind of an assessment that we're looking for. The other thing that we're going to give you, and I actually brought this with you tonight, and I want to circulate it to the board. You can, and brought a number of them circulated. This is something that our client goes through in terms of.
Have you sent this to us yet?
No,
Okay.
but I brought this tonight because the reason why I brought this tonight is. That's,
That's okay.
I'm gonna circulate it
That's
again.
fine.
Yeah, Yeah. This wasn't looking to be a formal submittal, but the reason why I brought it tonight was it's a task description and procedures that takes place by their drivers prior to loading and unloading, during unloading and unloading, and after loading and unloading. It's a check off of everything they have to do. And the reason why I brought this here, this was delivered for a project in 2016. This is the same procedures that are still being followed to this day. So when they say that, you know, we have procedures in place, it's an accurate assessment. These are still the same procedures that they follow to this day, that their drivers who are unloading and loading. And I'm gonna include this in my future submittal with their updated letterhead, because this was their old office location. But I did want to bring this to your attention as, in addition to the maintenance that takes place at the station, here's the other maintenance during the delivery, which I think will further give you an idea of the level of care that's taken for the.
And you own your own trucks to deliver, or you have
Yes.
Turpinning delivery?
It's throwing trucks and transports and
Okay.
all.
Similar to, Lucky, and they did the same thing.
But just to let you know, Lucky and the other lady, we work for me. I'm in this business since 1977.
They work for you?
Yes.
Oh, great.
We used to pump gas for me.
Oh, nice. Very good.
Even Tariq.
Oh, okay, nice.
Okay. I'm the one who started the Greenfield program in New York State.
Okay.
But we just put tanks in DEP water, New York State watershed. You know, these tanks are regulated by DEC and the EPA, United States town.
Of course.
So this is not legal to put it in the, what is Aca Forest, they won't let me do. You know, we operate and we supply over 200 locations. And we're in business almost 50 years.
Great.
Double wall tanks with the sensor, with the alarm, with monitor it almost by the hour from the sale. Because we are worried about theft.
Yeah, absolutely.
All comes into the office.
Okay, so we're gonna need that.
Yeah.
We're gonna need to provide that documentation.
We'll elaborate all this supporting information in terms of the groundwater protection. We kind of do a separate write-up. Do you want to include it as a separate document or include it in EAF as an appendix?
Well, the latter would make more sense, because that's ultimately where it's gonna be used. So with this discussion, I think, Mark, they've met the post-meeting memo requests for documentation.
Agreed.
I'll just go over where we're at with key considerations. And we'll return to the first one.
Yep.
Because this goes to DOT. So we still have to deal with compliance with Town Code 14017G regarding site access. As the code says, no direct access on Route 209 if you have adequate access on an alternative road.
Right.
And you proposing both.
Correct, and that's.
Well, we'll get to
Yeah.
this. There's compliance with Town Code 14055 for the board, which is the special use review criteria, which on the memo I just gave you some outline.
The 5. Yep.
My recommendation is, think about that, put it aside, because we got at least a month of process.
Yep.
Before we can get to the point of actually reviewing substantively the application beyond the environmental impacts, okay?
Okay.
So it's important, but it's still important because you have to, those criteria have to be agreed to by the board technically before you can give a site plan.
Sure.
We talked about the additional documentation on underground fuel storage. We do need ultimately referral and comments from the highway superintendent
And
and the fire district.
Yep. We can send that.
Is that our office making a direct?
No, we do.
No, we take care of
We do that.
So you need 2 extra.
And as you acknowledge, you're gonna need a permit from the highway superintendent.
Right.
Because DOT can unilaterally approve what goes on at town.
Correct, only up to 200 feet if it's a signalized intersection, and then
But DOT doesn't own it.
correct.
This town owns it.
You're absolutely right. I'm just saying that if a signal's permitted,
Right.
They do 200 feet, but the improvements extend beyond 200 feet, so you also need a highway work permit in the town as well.
So my recommendation is, as an element of the DOT, which we'll talk a little now that Phil's here. We need to get the town in sync with this discussion with you guys and DOT. Because as I've seen in other settings, we could get in an awkward situation where we've got a conflict between what DOT seems to want, what the town wants. And it's a kind of who wins? Nobody. Unless we resolve this. So, we did get confirmation on this, state parks, state historic preservation officer, about the archaeological sensitivity. I guess that you'll get that to us momentarily.
Sure.
Okay. So,
Let's go to
if
traffic.
what's that?
Let's go to traffic.
Okay, with traffic. So we have a traffic study, traffic impact analysis. We had commented on that. DOT had some comments on that. I don't know. Their DOT's comments and responses are still pending because we have an email exchange between the applicant and their representative at DOT that gives this kind of one sentence general conceptual sign off. But earlier in the string, there are a series of technical comments from DOT. You might want to explain what the status of those are. And then the board and I don't understand what conceptual sign off means at this level versus actually getting a permit.
Let me give you a status of where we are. So the email chain was with the Poughkeepsie Regional Office. We had made a submission of the traffic study and the site plan. From the last meeting, we understood the concerns about traffic flow and the difficulty of getting out of Medicahans Road and access at that intersection at 209. So we went back and looked at all the other data that we had collected. We revised the plan to show widening and improvements at the intersection. So the revised plan provided a widening on Route 209 to provide a left turn lane for anyone turning up Better Cox Road. And also with the private lane across from here, a left turn lane for that, so that through traffic would be able to be moved when someone was making a turn. In addition,
Hang on right there, Phil. No change on Medicahans as of right now?
No,
Okay.
there is a change on that.
Okay, go ahead.
The change on Medicahans, and this was key to the DOT's review and determination on the signal, which is an email chain.
Yep.
So DOT looked at the volume and the projections and what goes on there, and they're in agreement with the signal going in at the intersection. That's critical because DOT does not, under their current regulations, like to have a side road that has more than a one lane approach unless it's signalized. So our proposal is to widen Medicahans Road to have a lane for right turn movements and for making a left turn or going across the throttle.
The left would go straight.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that would be under a signal control. It would be state-of-the-art requirements of DOT with actuation control based on by camera.
Okay.
So that they don't have to maintain anything in the roadway itself. The plan also has the access to the site opposite the skate rink driveway, so there'll be 3 to 4 way intersection. And the widening will be from that driveway basically transitioning to get the 2 lanes approaching Route 209. So that would accommodate some of your peak flows from Roundout Valley when there's activities going on there, even when the facility is not generating high numbers. The proposal was also for a right turn in, right turn out onto Route 209. And that was the first thing we wanted to do was get DOT's input, understanding the town has their own requirements.
Sure.
So the comments in the email indicate that they wanted a mountable curved island in order to control that movement. So it would be right turn in and right turn out. And this is a typical configuration that DOT.
We have it on the skate time. Skate time has the same configuration.
Correct. So those are really the access-related improvements, and these improvements will all be at the cost of the applicant, because we have to get what's called a highway work permit from DOT to do all these improvements. Just in round numbers, you're looking at over $1 million of improvements, on widening the roadway, resurfacing, restriping, signal installation, the actuation, so on and so forth. What DOT typically will do is, before we go to final detailed design, say, okay, in concept, we're in agreement there. 3 items that we still want you to provide for us. One was relative to the curved mountable island here. Number 2 was to demonstrate the turning movements for trucks accessing the site, for vehicles turning off of 209 on Medicahonts Road. Once we touch the intersection, we have to bring it up to current standards.
Okay.
So even if a radius isn't adequate today,
You gotta fix it.
we have to fix it.
Okay.
That's what we're doing. So, they wanted the turning tracks, and then the other was relative to trip generation. And that's where they were referring to the ITE, which is what we use. And they're saying, well, you used a lower pass by than what's typical for this use. And what that means is a pass by and diverted link trips. That means that if I put a facility here, not everybody that's going to this site is brand new. I may be going to work, so I'm passing by, I'll stop in, I'll get my coffee, I'll get my gas, and I'll go on my merry way. So we typically use 25% as our highest pass by. And what Mr. Brenner's comment was, you used a low percentage because that can be up to 70% on a really, really heavy road. The other part of that is you can't, if I decided to take the 70% pass by credit, the way that comes into play is when you start looking at where the trips end up. When you're right at the site, you're seeing the full movements, the full volumes, okay? So you don't really get the credit other than somebody may turn in here, they come off the through movement, and then when they leave, they come back onto it. So that's what a pass by and a diverted link trip is.
Okay.
So his comment is, you only took 25%, ITE says it's higher, you know, you can adjust it higher. So we were conservative on that. In terms of the next step, we have to do the detailed design of the signal installation.
So to be clear, the pass-by is the percentage of visits to the facility that would have been on 209 anyway?
Correct. Correct. In terms of the signal design, we now go into the detailed design, the footing design, the pole design, and that goes through what's called the work permit review. We can't get a work permit until the lead agency makes their secret determination. So that's why we typically get conceptual approval, so that we're in a position where we can go to the design level.
Okay.
We have to go through the design on the widening, because when you widen the roadway, we have to excavate the shoulders, put the shoulder back in at full depth pavement, because now vehicles are going to travel on it. So you may say, how can you get to $1 million? That's how you get to $1 million, because you're basically reconstructing their highway to the full current standard. So that would be the next step with us, is that we would, and the key from our standpoint is, would DOT going to allow a signal or not? Because I think that's the key in terms of getting the improvements on Medicahonts Road, and also being able to have the 2-lane approach to handle those peak times that we saw in some of our data collection. In terms of next steps, we already responded as of Friday, and we will send a copy to the board. But we responded to Mr. Brenner's comments and indicating that, you know, in our next submission, we have the detailed design of the signal, but to respond to the question about the pass-bys and the trip credits, and to provide him with some of the turning tracks. So, and we indicated that after we met with the board, then we would provide whatever other information.
So Dave, do you want to, well, Dave and Dave?
Well, I think that on the traffic issue, we're gonna talk about seeker in a moment.
Yeah.
So, but we have to figure out how to get the right town rep, speaking of the board, participating in this discussion. I don't know if that's highway superintendent and the engineer.
So what we would do is we would send it to the engineer first.
Okay,
And then once we get their feedback, we bring it to the highway superintendent for his
all right,
input, and then we can go.
because some of this work's gonna happen on town property.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah,
And-
and that's what we would do. With your permission, we would meet with the engineer and the highway and go over the details, what pavement does he want, what else? But that step, we needed to have DOT's input first,
Sure.
Okay,
so.
and we have this, minor nagging issue,
Mhm.
G1, no track shall be provided direct access to routes 209 or 4455 if adequate alternative access can be provided.
Right.
That's not wishy-washy. So
I mean,
no,
what we could do though, is if you wanted to avoid that, you could go to the ZBA and ask for a variance to that code. And if the ZBA was interested in, they would hear it and make a determination based on your needs and wants.
Yeah.
If they were to grant that variance, then that would come back to us. As of today, we have a code that we have to live up to, and we can't issue a variance for that request. That's why we have the zoning board of appeals. So
well, unless the plan B is a representation by you, by DOT, collectively to the board that it's inadequate. That the alternative
that
The
Medica
ax-
Hunks is not,
is inadequate and you need
Not a viable
the
option.
secondary access.
That's what I thought was, one of the alternatives discussed at the, I believe, the May meeting. was-
right, but we would need a variance to approve that code. We can't make that decision.
Yeah, I
I
don't,
thought-
it's to be determined. That
I
the
thought
board,
the
this
DOT
board,
suggested that you needed access to their road to improve traffic.
Well, no, if DOT says you need a traffic light because of the road discussion, whether it's not up to snuff, the grade of the road is not high enough, whatever the situation, then the town highway superintendent would say it is, and you can use Medica Hunks and 209 is not an option. If Medica Hunks is not an option, then we would need the ZBA to say, we have to use 209 to get around 140-17G1.
I guess.
I guess the test is the adequacy of the town code. If it would be inadequate access without the 209 direct access, right in, right out. This board can vary from this for submission purposes and process, but not the substantive part. There's no ability for them to say, oh, no problem, you don't have to worry about this.
The question I was going to ask was if DOT is conditioning their approval on a right turn in, right turn out.
You could try to see if this
But we don't,
the board could decide if that's meets the adequacy test. or
the
not.
reason for the zoning board of appeals is to review that code that the
Right.
town board has set. We don't have the jurisdiction to say, yeah, based on what DOT says, we can supersede that town code. You would need to bring that information to the ZBA and say, this is the reason we're here. Sounds like you have a good case. And then they would review that and approve it or deny it, and it would come back to us for conceptual design. But today, just because the DOT says it's not adequate without the project, the ZBA doesn't agree, then the project is dead.
Could we request an interpretation?
Yes, of
on
course.
that? Because I'm just thinking about from the ZBA perspective, there's not a particular use variance that's being sought, and it's not a particular bulk requirement that's being evaluated.
Well, you are going for a special use permit too.
No, but I'm saying like if you're looking.
You
make
want
a
to-
zoning
you want-
modification.
You want that section of the code to be interpreted.
Yeah, as to whether. or
They
not
always
it's
have the right to do that.
Oh, absolutely, sure. I mean, I think regardless though, we're gonna,
Well, you could do two things. You could do that yourself, or counselor, I think state law says this board could refer it on its own initiative.
Yeah, I think we could put a
interpretation.
request in.
Well, we could also, but the provision says, no track shall be provided direct access from 4455 to 209 if adequate alternative access can be provided by way of another road, frontage or parallel access drive or cross access drive. So it's not a flat prohibition, it's a question of whether adequate alternative access can exist with another road. So the question is, does adequate alternative access exist on Medicahonks Road?
Yeah, well, yeah, we have,
It's
skate
just-
time has access
It's
on.
just adequacy test.
Yeah, so
Okay,
is the claim that there is not adequate alternative access on Medicahonks Road?
The signal, improvement along with the right turn in and out is what's being recommended by the DOT.
Right, but is Medicahonks adequate enough?
We're talking about the law here.
Yeah.
The way to keep it in this room before this board is to answer this question in a certain way. Are you claiming that you cannot provide adequate access to the facility on Medicahonks Road?
What we would demonstrate to you is that from a level of service, which is the criteria that we're required to use when we evaluate intersections, that this access scheme would provide a better overall level of service at both intersections.
I think everybody here agrees with that.
You know,
Right, I think I
and
agree.
if we didn't have this and everyone had to go through this one intersection, that level of service would be a little bit worse.
Sure.
Okay, we would demonstrate that. So we would provide that hard data.
I understand that. That's the position. You gotta sell that to the CBA.
Yeah, you have,
Understood.
you have to say to the
If you-
ZBA,
if
we
you-
agree.
If you would argue to us that you couldn't have adequate access on Medicahonks Road, we'd be able to talk about under the code, we could actually stay within the parameters of that.
But we know that Medicahonks is an alternative access because we have a neighboring business that utilizes it as its primary. So I think at this point on the traffic conversation, we'll get you referred to the ZBA. You can plead your case. Sounds like you have a good case to plead. And then once they give us their blessing, if they go that route, then we can come back and move forward with traffic and move on.
I just want to point out that, and this should be true of everything we're doing. The ZBA, this is going to be an area variance with the ZBA. They're going to be an involved agency. If that's what we're going to do. Their variance is going to be subject to seeker as well as anything this board does. So
Do you want to talk about seeker since you're going in that conversation?
I do, and we could segue into it. And this is what we've talked about in the abstract before. This is a really good example of this for the board. The seeker analysis here should be the thing that is out front, because these are all environmental issues. I mean, not every environmental issue is ecological with, birds and things like that, and water pollution. It also has a lot to do with the human environment, historic preservation, traffic congestion. These are all absolute classic seeker issues. This is a type 1 action. It's going to require a seeker review and a fairly significant one. And my point would be that the seeker review, which will be generated by the lead agency, which this board may want to consider, trying to attain that status, circulating notice. Ultimately, all the information that these folks will have will go through that seeker review. If this board becomes the lead agency, we will curate that. We will evaluate it. Our consultants will kick the tires on it. And then once we get done with it, whether it's a negative declaration or an EIS, that package, which of hopefully environmental analysis and intelligence, will go to all the involved agencies, including the CBA, and for that matter, including the DOT. Now, the DOT may, and I know DEC, often the DEC will say, thanks, we'll do our own analysis, and that's their right, and that's DOT's right. But our job, or the lead agency's job, will be to compile all of these arguments, all the alternatives, all the analysis, and that way it'll be available to every agency. And the ZBA will require that before they give their variance. And that's what they're ultimately going to do. So we ought to talk about declaring lead agency and then getting these folks all the arguments sort of put into the box of bring us in your information and let's start getting the.
You want to circulate for notice of intent?
I would recommend that, at some point in this discussion,
Yeah, I mean, I
this
think we
board
should-
make a determination.
I think we have a lot of, we've talked about a lot of individual things. Dave's got his review. You got some homework on SHPO and double line of the tank to get that back to the engineer. Got to get you in front of the ZBA, so we need to get you back to Jasmine to get on their agenda. So if we want to make a motion to.
If I think, just to elaborate, it's a type 1 action by town code.
Correct.
This use by this town's code in the aquifer overlay is defined as a type 1 action. So don't look for it in the seeker regs.
Right.
It's in the town code
We consider
that this is a type 1 action.
And I would also point out that one of the things that you want to do just as a kind of a handy shortcut for yourselves is when you ask why something's a type 1 action, no matter which code it's in, In this case, what we're talking about essentially is potential impact on the aquifer. And that means that almost as a matter of course, part of the submittals will be very hopefully clear demonstration as to how any potential impact is going to be mitigated. So we'll put that right on the list even, and obviously the traffic issues as well, even before we get to anything else. I will also suggest SHPO types of historic preservation issues also are secret.
So you want us to get a motion to
declare lead agency,
declare lead agency. Okay.
which means actually circulating an intent to be lead agency to all the other involved agencies. They will have a month
And you can get back to us.
to get back to us. If they don't, we become the lead agency. If they do, if they approve, we still become the lead agency. If they have
So
objections.
let's go over
then we
that,
can
let's
through
go over that
those.
list of who we're circulating to. I have CBA,
It's in the EAF, but it would be
ZBA.
DOT,
DOT,
DEC,
yep,
regional.
Yep.
Region 3, right?
SHPO,
SHPO.
yep, town board,
Why? They have an approval?
County.
Ulster County.
Oh, that's not, that's not.
Ulster
an
County,
approval.
we're not there yet.
Planning board,
We-
so,
The Board of Health, they have a septic.
yeah, although those are considered administrative permits.
No,
They're an
we
We
interested
still have to
party.
send it to them in a type 1 action.
Yeah,
So no town board,
And you've got Ulster
I don't know what
County.
their approval is.
they might want lead agency because of its location.
In order to be lead agency, you gotta be an involved agency. In order to be an involved agency, you have to have an approval. That's also, by the way, why the county planning is not.
So highway superintendent would not have an approval then. No, so we don't. need that.
Yes, they did use a permit.
Okay, so then highway All right.
And
and the ZBA.
county planning's not considered a permit in this context.
Yeah, because,
Ulster County Planning Board, we have to send it to them anyway.
yeah, but they don't necessarily get a circulation of notice of tenancy lead because they can't, in other words, if somebody can deny this project, that means that they set functional
And
permit.
it can't be.
Ulster County planning can't deny the project. They can just give advice to make it harder, but,
Okay.
you know, it's not a denial.
All right, so a motion for that. Somebody.
I make the motion.
All right.
So
I seconded it.
Zach and Helena, all in favor of that.
David, what about the gateway?
Hang on a second. Let's get the motion. All in favor of the motion to circulate for notice of intent to be lead agency? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so Jasmine will get that sent out. Zorian, go ahead.
Gateway, meeting. Plus,
With the county.
Would you,
I've been to a few of those. It's your call. The focus, as I understand, is supposed to be if there are county impacts. They volunteer to facilitate discussions. I don't know what, it's your call if you find it.
I just asked about it because.
I find them a mixed bag.
The DOT are gonna comment on certain aspects of the site plan, right, part of, since it's on the scenic byway.
No, he's talking about a gateway meeting.
With the county.
Ulster County Planning Department has agreed on request to host what's called gateway meetings. Which means they put everybody, all agency reps, and boards reps in a room together to talk about it, whatever issues are out there. It's, in my experience, typically driven by and most effective when there's a county concern.
We don't know if the county concern.
So we send it to the Ulster County Planning Board.
But also, at least one report has kind of beaten up everybody. over
Yeah,
there.
the town of Hurley, it's
It's
been an awkward experience with whether it's a meeting or not.
It's a crazy.
And if it's a meeting, the public, it needs to be noticed, the public needs to be invited. And they've had a hiccup in that regard. Because there have been apparently there's been basis of decisions made on
At the gateway.
at the gateway meetings, there is an outcome of those meetings.
That's no good.
Yet the public hasn't been able to participate or even know that the meetings happened. So that was the finding in the town of Hurley case.
Yeah, it was a weird, the point is.
I'm just recording from the bus.
No, we've
But
done
if
one.
you don't think
There's I would suggest that this board concentrate on, first of all, securing the jurisdiction under seeker's lead agency, and then, assuming that happens, it's gonna be a big job, figuring out all the environmental issues that we're gonna ask these guys for, information on, some of which obviously they've already submitted to other agencies, we need to get that, and what resources we need to evaluate it all. unless there are traffic engineers among us, we're gonna need people that understand levels of service and the calculations that Phil does and all the other.
And we gotta get Greg involved too.
Greg and anybody Greg needs and making sure that
Sure.
that gets facilitated and that information comes back to us. So we gotta be organizing that in order to evaluate what they bring forward and ultimately deciding what on the declaration of significance.
We'll get-
That's a serious job. We've obviously got a lot of issues here, including the aquifer, which is the reason why this is type 1. So we're gonna wanna see all of their mitigation, how the tanks, the success rate in stopping spills, also the soils, the susceptibility to the aquifer, which may be already available. You know, whatever we're going to need, because ultimately when we do it, if we were to do a negative declaration, we'd be certifying essentially that there are no significant adverse environmental impacts. So whatever information you need from whatever experts we think we need to be secure in that information, we have to start thinking about.
So in tandem, I'm gonna do highway and fire at the same time so we can get those guys.
I was just gonna add one thing, so what,
Yep.
Mr. Gordon said before, if there are significant impacts, how they're being mitigated.
What-
If there are impacts, how they're being mitigated.
Yeah, we're gonna need that.
You don't have to provide that.
Absolutely. You're gonna, I assume you're gonna give us information on the tanks you're gonna use and the detection.
Yeah, we have all that info.
Detection. Yeah.
My question to you is, when one of the, obviously, we're in an aquifer overlay district. Yes, we're getting all the tank mitigations, but when do we ask for you to characterize the aquifer? So then we know how your mitigation plan falls.
I
into
said,
that.
complete, that's part of the information. What, is this, are the soils here the sort of thing that immediately catches a gasoline leak or go right through? I mean, we need to know
Well,
that.
and the direction that the aquifer is moving.
The
to.
whole bit, everything.
Okay.
We,
I just
you
wasn't
need
sure
everything.
when we ask that
Ultimately,
question.
these are your decisions, but whatever you're going to need to be able to turn around to your constituents and certify that this is not gonna have an adverse environmental impact.
Well, let's get the ZBA involved first. Let's
Got it.
let
Yeah,
the cart before the horse.
I
And
wasn't sure.
No,
we'll get with you guys back with Jasmine, so, because she's also the secretary for the ZBA, so she can get that process started, and then we'll see you back after that
but
process.
they won't, again, they will not be able to give their variance until they get a secret.
We have to wait till lead agency comes back.
Not lead aid, until lead agency crunch it and then either a neg deck or a pos deck and an EIS. They cannot do their variance until that happens. If you're gonna go the ZBA route.
Does-
Well, you may, for clarification, one option is to seek an interpretation,
Fair enough.
which is, I don't recall, subject to seeker or not?
No, but like, you know,
It's pretty clear that
particular- I mean, what I'm reading it is if adequate alternative access can be provided by way of another road, they're gonna need to go to the ZBA. If adequate alternative access can't be provided by way of another road, which means Natacons Road, they can stay here. But they have to prove that to us.
Let me just ask this question. If we do have to go to the ZBA, one is, do we do the interpretation just to understand what type of variance we need, or are you certain it would be an area variance?
Oh, no, your variance is 140-17G1.
Yeah, but I guess the question is what type of.
That's a good question. Basically, variances come down to two flavors, area variances, use variances. This is not a use variance. So area variance has tended to, it's not just, you know, a setback or something like that. It's tended to become anything relating to where it is, what it is, et cetera. That's a good question. I think generally area variances have captured everything. It's not, that's not, or use. You have to, or do you need a use that's not in the code?
So I wouldn't want to make an application that isn't sufficiently supported by an interpretation. I guess.
See what this code enforcement, that's a question for the code enforcement.
Yeah, however you want to handle that, and because you're going to have to go back to code enforcement anyway.
Well, yeah, because I don't want to make an application to CBA that then gets denied because it's not this particular type of variance. It's true.
Right, this board has to refer you to the ZBA, which, I mean, we can vote on that if we like. We have to refer them, correct?
They don't apply for variance.
Or a referral, right, we have to refer them to the
Okay.
ZBA.
So you can go to, as I
What's that?
understand it, you could,
Yeah.
you could,
Okay.
you could go to the code enforcement officer and he could refer you. Or
Right.
this board could refer you now.
Yeah, I think one of the things we would hope for and ask for is referral just to understand the viability of what their thought process.
Well, we would refer you for an area variance over 140 17 G1. Then it's in stone and that's what they're gonna be focusing.
Yeah.
It's not a use variance, it's an area.
No,
variance,
yeah.
Okay, so how about, I'll make that motion, that we refer, this application to the zoning board of appeals for an area variance based on 140 17 G1 for review of their adequacy of the road.
I second.
Motion by Mark, a second by Helena, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Well,
Okay,
it wouldn't be for, it wouldn't be for the, it wouldn't be for them doing this, that would be here, it would be to vary the whole, just to remove.
to vary the,
So that they would not have to comply with this provision. That's what you're looking for in your area variance. It's like saying if there was a, 30-foot hood, 30-foot
tall
high
building and you want a 32.
or something else. It's like you're throwing that provision out and doing something else. That's what you'd be getting.
So you're ultimately gonna, to prove to the ZBA that you need to get off of 209, on and off.
It seems to be the adequacy test you want to show to the ZBA, right? Which may not be that hard to
If
show.
you've seen some other businesses along the corridor, this is the standard procedure they've done is going to do that.
It is, it's what we did at skate time. That's how they got that.
Precedent would seem relevant, sure.
The benefit is you're not proposing on an in going left, because that would be a huge problem. You're focusing on a in going right and an out going right, which is similar to skate time. I won't speak for the ZBA because I don't know what their procedure is, but this is something they've seen before, if that makes sense.
I just want to make sure it's something good.
Okay, we'll wrap this one up quickly. Go ahead.
I have a question, just if you're gonna widen the roads, does it require land from?
The widening would be within the existing right of way or lands that we control and we would have to dedicate it to the state.
So you're gonna have to cut off on the south side of 209 or the east side of 209, and then Medicons Road, you're gonna have to get that land from somewhere.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
Medical
what's not on
Hans would be
study
on
list.
our side of Medicons.
They would leave the skate time side alone
Yes.
and make it wide. Decrease their property by adding road.
Okay, so then on 209 on the northbound side, you'd be going into the side by Trotter Lane there.
Yes, right now, we are showing widening on both sides of 209. So, but again, exactly where the right of way line is, we may end up with more widening on one side versus the other.
Sure.
But it has to be within the existing state right of way or lands that we control. And then we would have to dedicate it either to the town or to the state.
I want to make one more point on the, now we're talking about the actual work. Usually in seeker for a project, we tend to look much harder at the ultimate impacts rather than the construction period. And the construction period is going to get certain, protections as a result of site plan approval, et cetera. But most of the seeker analysis is what's going to happen ultimately, and assuming they have, runoff controls and things like that. In a case like this, though, where they're expanding 209, putting obviously, as you said, a lot of money into it, $1 million, including the traffic light. We may want to take a pretty hard look as well at the construction period. You guys know better than I do, but if they're going to be, doing this level of work on 209, we're going to have to take as part of our seeker analysis, we're going to have to take a pretty good look at whether that itself is going to have a significant adverse impact and what mitigation measures are going to be needed for that. And they go just above and beyond what we would do for a typical project, is to make sure you're not, doing construction after 8 o'clock or before 9 o'clock in the morning, and
DOT has very strict rules for work permits, not their own work on the highway.
Sure.
But
For
when it's a
else-
private applicant, they require certain, avoiding certain time periods. And also they require inspection of the work on their behalf.
what I'm talking about though is whether
Yes.
this process is going to have a significant impact.
Yeah, whether it's at noon or at
whatever
midnight.
period. Are we gonna, it's obviously an important road in the town, and so that will be something that it's just the board to consider as well.
Just for your own reference, the DOT doesn't allow work to take place in early December through the end of March. So there's no construction work.
In the winter.
So you're talking about in the summer, we'd be essentially doing the work, and so that's.
Potentially, right. Okay, Zoran?
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think it's related, regardless, if you especially gonna use, meta-comments, going back to the traffic study.
Yes.
Again, we pointed out last time that your Saturday peaks don't show in anything later than 4 p.m. this is some event in that area. This is how many cars are gathering there. So my suggestion to you, that's why I want to say it now. The next event like this going to be September 21st, 22nd, 1 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. So complement your, revise your traffic study with measuring traffic for this event.
So can I suggest,
So does that mean, how often does that event occur during the year?
According to the website, like 4 times per season, but sometimes it's not frequent. They don't advertise, but still there are some customers.
can I suggest we, take one step at a time and make sure that we get lead agency, and then at that point, take a more
Yeah,
comprehensive.
I understand,
view
but
of what-
because of the.
There may be a list of things that we're gonna ask them in the traffic study.
It's just last opportunity this year.
Yes,
Okay.
appreciate that.
Emery?
Yeah, I just have one question. So, I understand you spoke to the local church. What was the conversation that took
Yeah,
place?
so we met with the local church. First thing we talked about was there was concern about, people parking on the bus property and walking children across that was raised by the board. That's actually not the case. All the drop-offs for the church, for their daycare, occurs on the church property. The church has adequate parking on their property. The busing facility doesn't have adequate parking for their employees. So the church allows the busing facility to park on their property during Mondays through Fridays.
Okay.
So the individuals you see crossing the street are employees of the bus facility. With regards to the overall project, the church had no objections to it. We did talk about screening for them, and that's reflected on the plans that we've presented the last 2 times. We presented a coniferous screening that they asked for. They did not want to see any sort of a fence. They felt that was more obtrusive than natural screening that can occur over time.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that when we get into the landscape, because there's a landscape bond that goes with it. That'll be included in that in case any of those trees die, then we'll have to replace them. So
Yes.
once we get down the landscape road, which is down the road, we'll talk about that soon.
Who did you speak to in the church out of curiosity?
His name was Bob Warner.
Bob Warner runs the church,
Yes,
last I knew.
we spent about an hour and a half. Bob.
And he told you about all the flooding that comes into the church. You're
Yeah.
aware of that.
Yeah, it is. Flooding comes from adjoining properties. There's the state road travels down his property as well. But there are a series of pipes in his property. I think he gets a lot of runoff from the northern section that travels down. He showed us from some of the hills that come down and go into.
Yeah, it starts at that Medica Hunks area, and there's no place for it to, the church is
Just
the
make sure that you're
lowest
aware
area.
that does happen.
Oh, yeah,
There-
we went.
Oh, there's a wetland area.
Yeah, there's wetland.
He-
Just-
well, he-
We don't see it until it's actually rain.
The portion where he gets flooded
Right.
just happens to be where the floodplain is on the property. So
Sure.
it's coincidental. But, so no, we did meet with him. The only other thing I just we didn't have an opportunity to touch on is the plan that we submitted to you. You know, I just want you to hear, we did hear about the concerns about the overall project disturbance. And we've greatly reduced the overall project disturbance by 48 acres. We've eliminated the 2 diesel pumps that were on the side of the facility. In doing so, we also reduced a total of 15,000 square feet of impervious cover on the site. Part of the reason why we have 2.8 acres is there's a drop, it's the problem. So we've got to build the site up so that we can drive ourselves in and then not have a 7-foot elevation difference between the property and the roadway. So that's what's contributing to some of the overall site disturbance that you're seeing, but we're gonna probably have less than an acre of impervious on the site. The rest is all going to be revegetated. We've shown a pretty extensive landscaping plan that shows landscaping surrounding Medica Hunks Road and the work with the right away. But I just want you to keep that in mind when you're working with well-planted bio-retention areas. We're gonna have a dry detention pond. So these are things that you just don't think of it as I'm getting 2.8 acres of impervious area. You know, you're getting about 1 acre, but it's also being broken up with some landscape islands internally. and we've got nice surrounding landscaping around it.
I assume you'll provide the visuals and simulations as part of the seeker.
We provided, the only extent that we've provided to date has been elevations per your site plan application of the particular, building itself. But we can give you an idea of what an elevation would look like with the, trees on a certain height.
We'll need that for
Seeker
start.
analysis, the visual impacts, what that will be part of it, you will be able to provide all that information.
Okey dokey. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will see you guys in the near future. Okay, if you guys want to take a minute or two, and then we'll get started on the next application. Bill, you're up next with Patinkin, okay? Oh, no, you're all right.
No, it's fine.
No, it's great. We got a lot to go over, so that's good. Peter, coming to you. Not a very good job of coming to you, sorry. Two down. I got one more if you want it. Thank you. Same family, different site. Okay, everybody's back. We'll keep the flow going here. The next application is 2024-27, a minor subdivision on Kaiserreich Road for the Patinkin family. Bill, you're familiar with the Patinkin family. We just did one for you for this
Yeah.
on a different site. So what do we got here?
Yeah. Interesting enough, if you remember the other site, it was actually a pretty major lot reconfiguration on Full
Here
Valley
is
Road.
easy.
And that was, one of their real driving purposes for doing that was they have a dear family friend that they want to be able to provide a place for her to build a small house. And they did all that work down there primarily to get that spot. After doing all that, then.
She's going here.
Yes, then that was happening, they found this property and they bought it for their children and everything. They said, gosh, maybe this would be a better place for her house, so now they're back here to try to free.
Well, this is a lot easier than
Well,
that,
yes,
that redesign. So,
Yeah,
look,
Nice friends.
we have a pre-existing house in the back that the kids live in, correct?
I'm not sure what they do with it.
Okay,
Who
yeah.
lives there or anything.
Okay,
but there's-
That's how I understand it with the application. So
Okay.
there's a pre-existing house that comes in off the side of Kaiserreich Road. And then there's another access point that comes in off of Old Kings that grants them access to an old barn. And then you're looking to subdivide this small 3-acre parcel off with a new curb cut to achieve that same density. So the only concern I have in the AR district is the agriculture goals of the town. I would really like to see that curb cut that is already pre-existing to be utilized for this access. Is that possible?
I would think so,
Shared driveway, shared apron, maybe?
Yeah, they may, just keep it simple here, I said, well, everybody likes to keep the ownership of their road frontage.
Of course.
So, that's why they kept the strip there. And I said, well, we could maybe use a shared driveway coming in here or have a separate driveway.
Right.
I proposed it this way as well, we'll start out with that and see where it goes.
I mean, I'm not opposed to this. I just know that we have good sight distances on both sides.
Yep.
To reduce a curb cut and potentially, they don't even have to have a shared driveway. It just would be the apron. Come in and go
Yeah.
right off
It's a
that side.
little tight in there, well, I guess, yeah. You see, there's a well house. right?
Yes.
That's an existing well there.
Okay.
So things, I'm not sure, how we would do with, if you come in with a shared driveway there, if they're gonna make that turn, right in front of the well house, you have like this
come in off the road and.
Understood.
Immediately make the.
I mean, just a
That's
suggestion,
not
if there's an opportunity, maybe flip the house on the other side,
Right,
grade the soils.
Mhm.
If they're just as
Yeah.
good keeping the septic in the same
Yeah.
spot, I don't,
This is the, the initial application.
it's a great plan otherwise.
So we haven't really, we haven't done anything as far as the actual, this is just sort of a rough concept as far as the layout, other than the well. But we haven't really looked at specifically septic and house placement and stuff.
So notes for you, feasibility study from Bill or from Barry, if you can. Just to give us an idea if that's a good location. Talk about the shared driveway, reconfigure it if possible. If not, that's okay. The additional curb cut's not gonna be of concern, but if it's an option, we would like to travel. If not, that's okay. Those are the items I have. You already had the wetland buffer on there. Otherwise, I feel pretty good. I mean, you're gonna use that well, I assume, to service that house?
Yes.
Okay, great. So you're outside that buffer of the 100 feet. So we'll need that circular
Okay,
around the well house, just to confirm that. Start with Helena and we'll go around the room.
Okay, well, I was here. Can I come back and?
Sure, Peter.
Is that the barn, the converted barn, is that being used for somebody? Is that driveway being used to get to that barn?
Yes, it is used to get to that. I don't know what they're currently using that for, and I'm not sure what the previous, it was.
Have you drove by this, Peter?
I did, yeah.
So there's like a barn, a shed, the driveway goes in there, the well house is up on the road.
The barn I think the barn is accessed.
The
by
barn
the
was almost looked like they use it for like just kind of a social space or something. It almost looked like a stage in there or something. I'm not sure, since.
Maybe Manny's filming there.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's more than a barn. It was, totally finished on the
Right.
interior.
Yeah, and also there's a solar array that's marked out here in the field.
I saw the transformer.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
There's a
Is that
solar
over?
array. It's in the field I saw today.
Okay.
Oh, it's actually in the field. Oh, when they did that, I don't remember seeing it.
So we'll need to throw that on there.
Yeah.
And then do we need we need to mark the distance from the well?
I just said that.
Yeah, I just got that.
Yeah, that was-
Okay, come back to Helena. You want to go around?
No, I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so on the short form EAF, you checked 12A and B that SHPO was required. So, and you checked yes, so I'm assuming we're gonna need sign off from SHPO.
Yep.
Okay, it said contains wetlands, water bodies, okay, that you have on the map, you have a 100-foot buffer. Item 15 of the short form EAF, you checked yes for bald eagle. Don't know if that needs, if this would require sign off from the DEC. And then also, item 16, you mentioned is in the 100-year floodplain.
So
And I have not gone out to the site, so.
there's a lot of wetlands surrounding it with federal wetlands on the property, but they're very far away.
Tiny little, it's.
All I know is when I was reviewing the
Yeah,
EAF.
that's the reason it's on there. There's DEC wetlands, M24 on the bottom right.
Way down at the bottom of the very steep bank down
Yep.
by the rail trail.
It's on it down here.
This is where the flood zone is.
Oh, okay. I got it here on Bill's map. It says it is.
So anyway, those were my comments.
Okay, thank you. Zori.
I have a very formal comment to that, because
Okay,
keep with the code,
that's okay.
and I brought it up last time, Bill. Put address on the plan, address of the property.
Property address on the plan.
It's 125-12 C3A in the code.
Okay.
The same should be addressed there as well.
We'll get your address off the sketch map. Come to Anne Marie.
No, I'm good.
Okay, Zach.
Aside from the driveway, I'm good.
Okay, I took your thunder on the driveway. Okay, so Bill, a couple things. We want to get that solar on there. Let's get that reconfigured, check on with the applicant about the shared driveway. Get us a new map with the updates and we can set the public hearing at the next meeting.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Thank you, sir. SHPO, we'll get it out to SHPO tomorrow,
Okay.
to at least get it in line.
Yep.
I don't want to put you on the next agenda until we hear back from them. But if you have everything and you get the submission in with the map, we can get you on the agenda, get all those items cleared, and then just wait for SHPO.
Yeah.
Okay?
All right. You're good.
Alrighty, thank you. The next applicant is, I don't see here. I'll take a field trip to the parking lot. I didn't see them walk in. Not, you guys want to prep real quick, we're gonna talk about zoning. Anybody out here, Mark? See who that is? Thanks, Bill.
Nobody there?
Okay, so the next agenda is, next item on the agenda is Kyle Valhalla. This is at 5167 Route 209. I want to just talk about it briefly while we have our notes. The applicant is not here. Board members, we have not done one of these in a long time, so just wanted to bring this to surface. This is a single-family dwelling looking to go to a two-family dwelling. So in conversation for note purposes, and I'm asking Chrissy to take these, we need to go back to the code enforcement for determination because they're determining a special use permit, which is required in the zoning district, but they don't meet the zoning requirements. They're on a half-acre property, and the two-family requirement requires that they have double the density, 1.5 times, which is 140-26B, and they don't meet that requirement as of right now. So we would need them to go to the ZBA to get that approval, which is going to be pending Board of Health, because now you have pre-existing non-conforming property that's in a half-acre in a 3-acre zoning district, which would be a 250% variance. So the ZBA would have to take a look at that. Obviously, they need to come back to us, but these are just notes that we were taking, Dave and I. In addition to that, they still need to meet 140-55, the special use requirement as well, which are the same 5 questions we just talked about for the gas land that is on Mr. Church's review. So a couple things, you know, to keep in the back of your mind for this application. We'll reach out to them. Jasmine and I will reach out to them to give them the information to be better prepared. They've provided us with just a map of, you probably saw it, I'm not gonna bring it up, just a map of the actual house. We still need lighting, parking, landscaping, fire exits. There's a whole lot of things going on. Common area, egress. So just make your notes, because I don't know if they're gonna be back next month or the following month.
Can they just go to the code enforcement officer?
They need to go back to code enforcement to start.
To go to the ZBA,
Correct.
or do they have to come before?
They're
us?
not here, so I'm gonna route them that way.
Okay.
But when they come back in December, these are things that they still have to meet those individual items.
Okay.
Okay.
Why December? Is you estimated how much time it is?
Oh, yeah, they gotta do a public hearing and they gotta get to the ZBA, they gotta get on the agenda, so that would be, if it was just 2 months, which would be very, very quick. It would be December earliest. I don't think it would be till January.
And just one question, Mark. There's reference to a mixed-use garage. Do you have any idea what that is?
It's a garage on the plan, but I don't have any narrative to explain it, so I don't know.
They just kept defining it as mixed use.
I assume that they're gonna each park a car in there for both apartments. That's what mixed use means, in my opinion, but if they're gonna run a business out of there, we need to know.
Could also be a studio up on top too.
It could be a third rental.
Could be a third rental,
Right.
correct.
So these are questions you'll have to ask when they come back.
Okay.
Okay, next item is I need a motion to approve August 26th meeting minutes. Have you had a chance to review them? No? Okay. Do you want more time to do that? Okay,
Yeah, I didn't see on the.
okay, I will get that pushed out to the October meeting. No problem. Okay, review of local law J, chapter 140 of the zoning code. Finally, our day has come to review this. Hope that everybody has notes on this. This is a long time coming. I know we've provided multiple responses to the town board, which I don't anticipate there to be many comments from us because we've already provided our comments many times. So if we do have comments, it would be above and beyond what we've already done. The town board has done an outstanding job in this code, I will say. They have removed the planned urban development, which is fantastic. They've removed commercial events at our request and obviously other complaints. There's been a lot of updates to the zoning code that is very, very good and for the benefit of the taxpayers of our town. So I'll go around the room briefly. If there is any comments, I don't foresee there to be any, but if you have any, we'll get a letter over to the town clerk's office to ask them to present that to the town board at their next available meeting. I'll start out with Anne Marie this time.
I'm good.
Great. Zach? Excellent. Sorry.
I honestly didn't have time because a lot of time to that RV. But may I ask a question about commercial? What happened? Remove commercial?
They removed commercial events from the code altogether. That is correct.
So anybody approaching for commercial event?
It's not allowed, and they'd have to go to the town board and ask for a variance to get that. Okay, I think it's great, yeah. Peter's good? Lena's great, okay. So, I did receive comments from Rick, all of which I've already answered because he didn't know the answer. He didn't have a chance to review them. He is away today. So I do have his comments. We'll just put them in for the record with the responses that we've already provided. Lastly, today is my last meeting. I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to be your chair and a member of your board. And I hope that I wish everybody the future and the best as you guys go forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:50. Can I have that motion?
I make a motion.
Zach? Favor by Helena? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thanks, guys.
This is the shortest meeting.
Yeah.